and Filipino women who are also Asian have a tendency to be more loyal to their partner.
This is absolutely disgusting to me. This is why I specialized in intersectional feminism, and I cannot let this go.
When you hear someone talking like this, it's important to actually go grab your dictionary so you can understand what the hell they're talking about. Intersectional feminism recognizes that people have overlapping or intersecting social identities and related systems of oppression, domination, or discrimination. People experience oppression in varying configurations and in varying degrees, depending on their social location and context. For example, caste, class, and gender influence each other. So basically what they're going on to say is that you're dealing with a level of feminism that also recognizes the other ways that supposedly this person, and in this case you see the picture right here, the other ways that this person is being held back and held down and oppressed and whatnot. So it's not just one way. It may not just be caste. It may be class. It may be gender influence and so forth and so on. So it says intersectional feminism would recognize that a woman with a disability experiences gender discrimination different than someone else. There's also this one that says intersectional feminism is a feminism that is all inclusive, because there's been too many allegations that feminism, especially in America, is white female feminism, and it does not include black females or perhaps Hispanic females, and in this case, Asian females. That's what's got her so upset.
You can go watch the original creator's video if you want, but I'll give you a trigger warning. It's gross and full of these two things.
Some of you may be wondering why Passport Bros is trending. Some of you may be wondering why so many of these videos about Passport Bros are trending on YouTube and trending on TikTok and trending on Facebook and trending on Instagram. Here's my theory, because I can't actually prove it. My theory is that during COVID, and we know that we've heard lots and lots and lots of studies, and we've heard lots of research. We know that depression went up dramatically during COVID. We know that suicide went up dramatically during COVID. What ultimately happened during the COVID quarantine is people were locked down, and many of them were alone. Some of these dudes, no wives, no girlfriends. A lot of these women, no boyfriends, no husbands, and people were basically lonely and depressed. However, when the COVID quarantine ended, dudes, as soon as these countries opened up, because I was actually watching, for example, the Philippines when COVID ended, and I was watching because the Philippines had one of the longest, and this is just the Philippines, the Philippines had one of the longest and most brutal lockdowns that there was. I mean, if you remember anything about it, Duterte kept the Philippines closed far longer than necessary. Thailand was experimenting with the belief that they'd be able to open up, and they were even planning on giving 90-day visas. Normally, the visas to go to Thailand or the Philippines are 30 days. Thailand was experimenting with 90-day visas because they wanted to get people to come there, stay there, and spend as much money as possible, because you got to remember, these countries rely heavily on tourism. The Philippine government, for example, they kept the COVID quarantine going, and the problem was more than 55% of the adult population was unemployed. More than 55. A large percentage of that country's income comes from tourism. My theory is that as soon as these countries opened up, not just those countries, but the other countries like Brazil, Colombia, Dominican Republic, so forth and so on, as soon as these countries opened up, these dudes grabbed their passports and they were on the next plane out. Some of these dudes, like I've even posted photos of friends of mine who actually got married. Black man who got married to a Filipina. In fact, I posted at least several photos. And this wasn't like just sex tourism, which these white liberal feminists want to paint it out to be. This man was in constant communication with her, And as soon as he had the chance, he flew to the Philippines and he married her. Now, the important thing to understand here is what is going on. White liberal feminists and the black liberal feminists who've taken up after the white liberal feminists, who are in these colleges, these universities, running up all the student loan debt, getting their PhDs in nothing, their ed doctorates in nothing, their liberal feminist, liberal arts degrees in nothing. They want you to call them doctor, but the moment that you need them to patch a bone or to fix a cut or to do some Dr. Lee, like, the pimple popper, Dr. Lee the pimple popper, that's a real doctor. There's many real doctors. I have respect for real doctors. If you can't fix broken bones or fix injuries, as far as I'm concerned, you're not a real doctor. I'm not calling you doctor. It's just that simple. And I think the rest of us need to get in that habit. These people are getting these degrees. They're absolutely useless when you get hurt. But this is what they do. And that's the reason why we're $1.7 trillion in student loans. We got so many career students. But I don't want to divert. The bottom line is Passport Bros won. Not only did we win, but we dealt crushing blows to the egos of these women who felt that they could control men's reproductive abilities, control men's resources, control men's wallets. They have been posting TikToks where they literally come out and say, well, you might as well just get with a single mom. So basically what they want you to believe is that you as a man should have to accept sloppy seconds. They believe that you should be a stepdad. Even Disney made a freaking short movie, The Stepdad. They believe that because you couldn't get the woman you wanted, here anyway, that you should have to accept sloppy seconds, that you should just have to wife up one of them after they've made their decisions, they've given the best of themselves to someone else. They believe that you should be the one to be, I call them cleanup bros. That's the new word. Instead of calling them stepdads, I call them cleanup bros. They expect you to be the cleanup man. A stepdad is like a man who's financing another man's orgasm. They expect you to clean up after the last guy. What did they say? Alpha sprays, beta pays. What the last thing they want you doing is grabbing that passport and going to greener pastures. That's the last thing they want you to do. The last thing they want you to do is go get a woman half your age, half their age, and marry her, especially marry her, because if you do that, then what you're doing is you're bringing her over here, you're giving her a better life, you're giving her better opportunity. So what do? They try to come out and try to make all these lies in order to scare you off.
First, I want to make this super clear, and I will not stutter. If you are a man, specifically a white man, who seeks out women from developing countries who are poor and vulnerable, you are a predator.
I'm actually very disappointed that we live in a society at this point where they don't check the use of these words in order to make sure that allegations that are improper don't get made against certain groups of people. But the reality is, a predator is an animal that preys on other animals. That's what a predator ultimately is. Now, what they've tried to do is they've tried to expand that definition to say that a predator is a person who ruthlessly preys on lesser developed or economically disenfranchised people. Now, here's the thing. While I could almost accept being a predator as a person who preys on, prostitution in other countries, what I can't accept, what I absolutely would not accept, is that a predator is a man from a country that goes to another country to marry a woman from another country simply because she's more open to marriage than a woman from his own country. First of all, the divorce rates in America alone should tell you that there's something seriously wrong here. So any man who grabs his passport and says, oh, listen, I'm going to go to this other country because I met Sofita online, and Sofita's been talking to me online, and we've been having a great conversation. I'm really interested in Sofita. I want to get married to Sofita. And he goes to Sofita's I made that name up. He goes to Sofita's country, and he wants to get married to Sofita. So there's no way the word predator should apply. But once again, these women are only, George Carlin said it best, especially white liberal feminists, just like this one. They are only interested in their own sexual freedom. They are only interested in their own sexual reproductive abilities. That's what they're focused on. They don't care about these other women. You won't see Miss Nose Ring Tongue Ring here going over to Islamic countries and fighting the Taliban. You won't see her going over there, and you won't see her fighting with the Peshmerga. You're not going to see any of that, because she's only concerned with being able to get the man she wants right here, and the possibility of him leaving and going overseas with his passport and finding another woman who has nothing to do with his culture and bringing her back here and giving her a better life than Miss Nose Ring Tongue Ring here. It irks her, it disgusts her, it angers her, and she's desperate to figure out a way to stop it. This is a perfect example of why passport bros are winning.
This man in his video goes on to perpetuate a horrific stereotype that literally harms Asian women, that says that Asian women are more submissive and loyal than Western women.
All right, I'm going to use data from Pew Research Center, but this is from 2017, so it was slightly before the pandemic by a couple of years, and was also slightly before the last census 2020. Now, I've pointed out research that shows in the census that it clearly has showed that the white population has shrank. The black population grew by a very small amount, but the largest increases were made by Hispanics and Asians. And this is just the data, so I've already shown it. But let me show you this one about intermarriage. Now, when they're talking about intermarriage, what they were showing is people by race that were intermarrying. They had showed that there was a slight decrease in Asian intermarriage, a slight increase in Hispanic intermarriage, and there was a dramatic increase in black and white intermarriage. And they did say that when it came to the interracial marriage of the Asians and the Hispanics, what may have played a role in it was whether or not they were born in this country. You can read this yourself. It's, I'll provide the link. But in any event, they were showing here, as you can see, it says a rising share of newlyweds are Hispanic or Asian, while white newlyweds are on the decline. Now, this is in line with what the 2020 census showed. So that's just what it is. Now, as you go down, they show you more stats. They show black men are twice as likely as black women to intermarry. And the question would be why? Well, if you're busy having to fight with someone and argue and don't trust that person, well, that's what pretty much happens. It's starting to get late, so I want to wrap this up. So I'm not going to keep this thing too long because you already know what it is. Passport bros are winning. White men, black men, we've grabbed those passports. I keep my passport in my safe right next to my Desert Eagle. And the thing about it is when I reach for that passport, you already know it's lit. Passport bros are winning. And you know what the funny thing is? Every time I make one of these videos, apparently somehow these videos are getting traction to the point where you've got these angry women who keep coming on my videos. Oh, well, what exactly are passport bros winning? To which point I got to keep replying. It's like, listen, the passport bros are winning. Not only are they wet, but on top of being wet, instead of being dry like these passport foes who are staying at home and having the sloppy seconds, well, the passport bros are getting marriages, lasting marriages. I've already keep telling the story. I got my uncle was a passport bro, went to Dominican Republic. He was 45. He got himself a Dominican wife, 14 years younger than himself. They've been married since 2011. 3 children, biggest house on the block, rich. I mean, rich. They can buy whatever they want. Biggest house on the block, biggest taxes on that block. And they're doing very, very, very well. Passport bros are winning. Passport bros are winning. Most of your marriages, those things don't even last 2 years. 3 years, 4 years, you're lucky. They've been married since 2011. Okay? So as far as I'm concerned, passport bros are winning. Now, there are some passport bros who they go and they don't choose well. But most of the passport bros, especially the ones who get in long-term relationships or the expats who go to other countries and work and they have a good chance to vet these women, passport bros are winning. I'm sorry, they're just winning. I know you're angry. I know you wish you could control men. I know you wish you had a way to control men's resources. I know you wish you could control a man's sexual reproductive freedom. But I'm sorry, you can't. And the beautiful thing I'd say about America, and I did that story. If you look in my videos, I did the story that in parts of Europe, they were trying to make it illegal for Thai wives to come to the country. You can even look in my videos. But guess what? They can't do that in America because it's discrimination. And not only is it discrimination, it's obvious discrimination. So these women, some of them, the ones who figured it out and the ones who said, oh, well, we can't stop them from doing this and we can't change the laws to stop them from doing this. So, yeah, you go ahead. You just go. Well, guess what? Yeah, we're going to go. But you know what they also add to that? Oh, but don't bring her back here. What are you talking about? Yeah, I'm bringing her back here. I'm going to bring her back here and put her on a pedestal above you. So while you're still there with your nose ring and your tongue ring and your tattoos and your pogs in your ear and whatever it is, she's going to be here being a wife. I'm giving her opportunity that she could only dream of. Opportunity not only for herself to better herself and to improve herself, but an opportunity to improve her family even back home. Because we all know that most of these women, when they intermarry with men from here, they come to this country, they work, they send money back home to their parents, and basically they help their family using a level of economic improvement that they never would have been able to get in their own country. To me, there's nothing predatorial about that. They're getting such a huge step up that they're literally signing up to do this and be this. Now, a real feminist would be in favor of that, but you're not a real feminist. What George Carlin says is you're a yuppie white liberal feminist, and the only thing you're concerned with is your own reproductive freedom. George Carlin had it right 30 years ago.
The reason these women from these developing countries are marrying you is the exact same reason that American women had to marry you before the 1970s. Because they had to, because they were economically vulnerable. And now American women won't marry you because we can have our own jobs and our own bank accounts. So you have to go to a developing country where those women are more vulnerable so you can get them.
While you're busy being so hateful and angry, did it ever cross your mind that there are some females who are well off in the middle class in other countries, and for whatever reason, they themselves decided that they want a foreign husband, perhaps a white man, a black man, or even a Hispanic man? Did it ever cross your mind that this dating isn't just based on a predatory relationship or a parasitic relationship? Did it ever cross your mind that some of those women have money, that they have jobs, that they post photos of themselves to their boyfriends, that they want to meet foreign men because they're interested in somebody different than themselves? Of course that didn't cross your mind. You're only focused on what you're not getting because these men do not want you. I think it might have something to do with that nose ring or that tongue ring. I think when they meet you, they decide, you know what, I don't want a woman with all those piercings. I'm pretty sure you probably have tattoos, even though I can't prove it. But there was an Arab woman who made a response video to this video, which I might put a little clip of that here, but the point is she did a great job destroying all of your arguments because they were all weak, and she pointed out the inherent racism in your position. And I'd also like to say I would bother pointing out the flaws in your logic regarding violence against Asian Americans, but considering what happened during the COVID quarantine and how a certain president had said some things that caused some people to decide to take it out on a certain type of person who looked a certain type of way, I would say that whatever nonsense that you're spewing is absolutely flawed. The last thing I'm going to say as far as passport bros are concerned, I'd like to give a shout out to Landry Simmons, who's running for the Ohio State Senate, and I'd like to congratulate him on his marriage to a lovely Filipina YouTuber. And they've known each other and they got married in Canada and whatnot, and I'd like to congratulate him on that. But see, when you're a hateful feminist, love is something that you can't comprehend. And more than anything, the knowledge that you can't police a man, you can't control his wallet, and you can't control what he does with his reproductive freedom is yet another aspect of life that will forever remain outside of your grasp. Very good day to you, ma'am.
I specialized in intersectional feminism, and
Just as a disclaimer, she's not actually an intersectional feminist. In reality, she's a white feminist who has a severe problem with white superiority and white savior complex. Because, surprise, surprise, as the white American that she is, she has a huge bias, and it's all over her video. And wow, she carries a lot of baggage. But let's get into it.
the original creator's video if you want, but I'll give you a trigger warning. It's gross and full of these two things.
So as we'll see in her video, she's actually the one who spews racism and belittles non-white women. Why are you assuming that just because a woman lives in the Philippines or any other Eastern nation, she's all of a sudden poor and miserable and vulnerable? You are perpetuating racist stereotypes about non-white people in non-white countries. And I think as an American yourself, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The American world order has barely lasted like 60 years and y'all are already on the decline.
To be continued.